when this is our job, and I think that this is very specific to having a creative job, is that it's so easy to get wrapped up in that perfectionism and to, I think you said, like, it chips away a little bit. You know, when you have to do it every day and you have to put out a certain product, there is a level of, it feels like it's limiting your creativity. And that's not always necessarily true. It's the way that it feels, but it's not always necessarily true. And so I think having an alternate creative outlet, in fact, I know having an alternate creative outlet or multiple creative outlets is really important for people with creative careers, because then you're not relying on your job to be the thing that is fulfilling you completely as a creative person.
Hey everybody, this is Chris from HonestyPill.com. You're listening to episode 6 of the Honesty Pill podcast. This season on the show, I'll be talking to innovative musician entrepreneurs who have created new ways of performing, new ways of teaching, and new ways of serving their audiences. I hope you guys are hungry, because my guest today is food blogger and creator of The Hungry Musician, Sarah Kenner, and we dig into how her relationship with food and cooking actually transformed her violin playing. Sarah explains the connection between taking care of your body, your mind, and your soul by doing things that nourish and inspire you, and how that can actually make you a better musician, and why you should never go into a Trader Joe's without a plan. Sarah also checks in on her favorite Great British Baking Show contestant, say that 10 times fast, explains what it's like to train for and run a 5K, and announces her free meal plan makeover challenge. We even had time to play a Guess What's in That Smoothie quiz, which, spoiler alert, Sarah totally aced, and I threw some really weird recipes at her. All right, grab a snack and get ready for this awesome conversation with culinary coach Sarah Kenner. Big welcome to the Honesty Pill podcast to Sarah Kenner of The Hungry Musician. Thank you so much for being here, Sarah.
Thank you so much, Chris. I'm really excited to be here.
So let's get right to it and ask the important question. Who is your favorite contestant on the Great British Baking Show?
Oh my gosh, that's such a hard question. Okay, so I have to be honest. I have not watched Great British Bake Off since Mary left.
Yep.
So I haven't seen any of the new seasons, but gosh, okay, I think it would be a tie between Martha and Nancy.
Okay, I can get behind both of those. For me, it's Val Stones from Series 7. The one, she was a little bit bonkers. She was always dropping her cakes, and she was always singing to her pastries. Do you remember her?
Yes.
And she would just go through and carry on no matter what was happening. I love that show. I actually bring it up sort of half serious. I love shows like that because of the competition audition brain component of watching people compete and still become really focused and really competitive, but also remaining awesome human beings. There's really no cutthroat element on that show, which is great. And when I talk to musicians about being successful in our industry at auditions or being a performer, it's kind of nice to remember that you can actually be a pleasant person and still be really competitive. And that show just totally focuses on that big time.
You know what? That is so true. And I've always told people that when I say, oh, you have to watch this show. I'm like, it's sort of like, Chopped on Food Network. It's kind of that level of intensity, except that everyone is nice and everyone is wholesome. And there are these, beautiful, intricate things that come out at the end. And, comparing it to classical music is really interesting. I've never really thought of that specifically, but as classical musicians, we put out a product that's very similar to, a very intricate cake, because there's like so many little details involved and everything is so intricate. And there's all this work on the back end that you don't see when you go to the performance hall or you go to the bakery and you see a huge, beautiful cake. You're like, oh, wow, that's so beautiful. But you don't really think about all that went into it. So
totally.
It's a really interesting parallel.
One more thing, not to just like stay on the topic of the Great British Baking Show forever, but one thing that's really interesting is if you gave 10 bakers the identical ingredients and just said bake a cake, you would get 10 different things. You would get cupcakes, you'd get pound cakes, you'd get finger cakes, you'd get a lemon cake, bundt cake, all these different things. But if you said, here are the ingredients, bake this cake, and you gave them a picture, you would get much more specific and closer to the target results. And I think about that in terms of coaching or teaching, that, look, it's totally awesome to be creative and create your own version of something. Create whatever you want. But sometimes, especially if you're trying to conform to win an audition or to get into a group or get on a certain concert series, you do have to have some parameters around what you're doing and have the ability to execute that. So I just think about that in terms of creativity. You know, is being a musician actually creative? Yeah, part of it is. And part of it is knowing how to follow directions, how to interpret something that a composer wrote or a conductor said to you. Anyway, I'm really hungry. I guess that's why I'm bringing this up right now. So, by the way, full warning to anyone listening, if you have not eaten lunch yet or breakfast, you're going to want to grab yourself something, because we're going to be talking about smoothies, we're going to be talking about recipes, and you're going to be tortured if you're hungry. So, on that topic, we're going to talk about the hungry part of the hungry musician in a minute, but let's talk about the musician part. So you're a violinist, you live in New York City, or you did live in New York City until recently. Is that where you went to school?
Yes, well, sort of. I did my undergrad at Temple University, which is in Philly. And then in 2014, I moved to New York. And I've been in the city ever since. Until recently, I've been spending time with my family during the pandemic in Westchester, but I went to Manhattan School of Music first. I did a modern violin master's degree there. And then I went right into the historical performance program at Juilliard. And I finished that in 2018. And I've just been working around here ever since. And yeah, it's been great. I love it here.
What made you switch to historical performance? That's a fascinating turn for someone who started out in the modern violin tract.
Yeah, so it's kind of like it's got a lot of twists and turns in the story, but the short version is when I was a junior in undergrad, I took a history course that was all about the life and music of J.S. Bach. And I didn't expect that I was going to love the course as much as I did. And so after that semester, I saw that the professor, whose name is Steve Zone, he's a Telemann scholar and a flutist, and he was teaching a course the following semester about historical performance practice. And so as someone who really, really loved history, but didn't want to be, an academic necessarily, I wouldn't go major in music history per se. I was really intrigued by this sort of crossroads and how I could have it both. I could have them both. I could study the history and also apply it to performance. So after that semester, I realized that historical performance it's not exclusive to early music, right? You could have a historical performance of Mozart. You could have a historical performance of Brahms. And I was so fascinated by the scope of what this could entail. And so after that, I knew that I wanted to have it be part of my life. But it wasn't until, I went through my degree at Manhattan School of Music. I didn't take any breaks. So I went right from undergrad into my first master's. And while I was there, I continued to take lessons with a teacher who I had actually met a couple of years prior when I was at Aspen doing the summer festival. I did a Baroque opera there because they, I guess, decided to do Monteverdi one year, and they asked anyone if they had experience with Baroque instruments. And at the time I didn't really, but I said that I did because I wanted to do it. And they ended up bringing in this violinist. Her name is Leah Nelson. They brought her in to coach us on Baroque string playing. And she lives in New York. So when I moved there, I kept studying with her while I was, also doing my thing at MSM. And I realized the more and more that I worked with the Baroque instruments and the bows and studied the history, I really felt at home with the sound world and just with the repertoire. And so that's when I decided to just go for it.
Wow, I have had such the opposite experience with period instruments. And that might be because the Baroque trumpet is literally a garden hose with no valves. And it's a beautiful sound. I actually really enjoy the sound of a good Baroque trumpet performance. It is not for me. I have colleagues who are very skilled at that and produce some incredible results. I've actually only played a Baroque trumpet one time, and it was with actually a New York City player, and it was after a rather large adult beverage, because it was the only way he convinced me to pick it up and try it. And it was, let's just say it wasn't one of the successes that I look back on fondly. So, but good for you for finding that and going with it. So I want to just talk about what it's like to go to school in New York City. I grew up in New York also. I'm from Long Island and spent a lot of my time in there. I never went to school there, but I know the vibe of New York City, at least the perceived vibe. I know New Yorkers are great and friendly and will help you out, but it's also a very intense place, especially as a music student. And let's talk about your experience when you first started at Manhattan. Something that's on your website that intrigued me was, I'm going to just read this real quickly. This is your quote. It said, "When I was a college freshman, I spent the entire year holed up in a practice room. I was convinced that the key to making progress was to sacrifice everything for music. I barely slept. I subsisted on junk food to keep me awake during the late night practice sessions, and I rarely made time to move anything other than my fingers and arms." That is such a tragic depiction of like every musician I know who starts out at music school, where they think the only way to survive and to be successful is to sort of destroy yourself or to just give everything to the practice room. And I see it post on, I follow, violinists and pianists on Instagram, and I see them, I skipped lunch again today. I'm into my 4th rehearsal and it's only 3:00. Haven't been sleeping for the past 2 weeks, super stressed out. And what I want to say about that before I hear your experience is that is not the way you become successful. That is the way you develop really bad practice habits, really bad mindset, really bad relationships with time and money, and how you can physically burn out your body. So what was your experience like that?
So this was freshman year of college. So this was 10 years ago. I think I was lucky that I learned this early, because I think a lot of people, they don't really learn this until much later. It just so happened that I spent my entire freshman year, I had just gotten to music school, coming from a high school, which was a public high school with a good arts program, but it wasn't an arts high school, which I think a lot of people who end up going to music school, they've come from a very specific environment where they've kind of been primed for the experience. But I was not. So I got to music school and I had orchestra rehearsals. I had chamber music. I was playing, really hard concertos that I hadn't really been working on before. And it was this new experience where I was just so happy to be immersed in music. And part of the reason why I kind of gave up everything and was spending so much time practicing is because I wanted to. I was really thrilled by the environment that I was in. And I felt that because, growing up, you hear all this stuff like, how many hours did you practice? How much time did you spend practicing this week? And so I had that in the back of my head all the time. I was like, how much time can I put in the practice room? And so I would practice between rehearsals. I would practice after rehearsals. I would bring my meals into the practice room and, take bites in between phrases. I guess as a string player, that's a luxury I have that some people don't. But, it felt kind of rock and roll for a while. I was like, yeah, like I'm sacrificing all this, time, and I'm really pouring my heart and soul into my music. But at the end of that year, I had gained about 60 pounds and I had no energy left. I think really the aha moment was at the end of your juries when, I knew I had made progress, but the comments I got hadn't really improved all that much from my mid-year juries. And I think at a certain point, I sat and I reflected and I was like, well, how did I get here? I really thought I was doing everything I needed to do. And then I realized that I just was not taking care of myself. And so when I went back to school, I did over the summer, I started, eating healthier and cooking more for myself. And part of that, I will say, is because I wasn't living in a dorm. I was back at my parents' for the summer and I had more resources than I did back then. But, I could have made better choices. Even with the environment that I was living in as a freshman, I could have made better choices. And so when I went back to school and I had an apartment, I was like, okay, I'm really going to buckle down and I'm going to make all these changes in my life. So that year I trained for a 5K. I made sure that I was cooking at least most of my meals. It's not really possible to cook all of your meals. You'll go crazy. But I, made a commitment to making all these changes. And I was spending less time in the practice room. I mean, I'll just say it. I was spending probably 25 to 50% of the time practicing that I was in my freshman year, but I was getting better a lot faster. And another thing that happened was at the beginning of that year, I had kind of a mild injury in my left hand, and I was very lucky that it wasn't anything serious, but that was also kind of a wake-up call where it's like, you don't need to spend all this time in the practice room. Like it will probably hurt you more than it will help. So that year, coincidentally, was also the year I started my blog, because I was doing all this cooking and I realized how much fun it was and how much creativity it was injecting back into my music. And in turn, the food was nourishing and energizing me in a way that I hadn't experienced from food before.
I want to talk about running for a minute because I'm a runner, and I noticed in 2011 you ran your first 5K, as you mentioned, and that's, for my non-running friends, that's just a little over 3 miles, which is not a small feat, especially for someone who maybe has never run before. What motivated you, other than wanting to get your body feeling better, what motivated you to start running, and what was it like when you first started getting out there? Because you didn't just do the 5K, you probably trained for it.
Yeah. So I did the app, the Couch to 5K app, which I'm sure most people have probably heard of. It's a great app. I recommend it. But actually, the reason I decided to start running is because my roommate at the time, who is my best friend from college, she still runs, I believe. She was doing all of these races. So she was doing the Broad Street run in Philly, which is like the big 10-mile run down Broad Street, which is the main street in the city. I was really inspired by seeing her get up every morning and go running, and she'd come back and it would seem like she was just refreshed. And, at that time in my life, I was still pretty young. I didn't have that much experience with joyful movement. Like I still saw exercise as this thing like, oh, I guess I have to do it in order to be healthy. But with running, I thought, well, maybe this will be a thing that I'll enjoy. And if I'm going to be honest, I mean, running, it's still not my absolute favorite form of movement. And even at that time, I think there were aspects of it I really loved. Like I loved the solo time. I loved that I could have my earphones in listening to music and just be with myself. And I did. I ran that 5K. It was really slow. I probably walked a third of it. But I was really proud that I did it. And actually, during the pandemic is when I took up running again, because my brother ran a half marathon right before the pandemic, and I was inspired by him. And so when we were all locked up at home together, my brother and I would go out running, and he kind of retrained me, and I ended up running my first 10K over the summer. So I've gotten back into it, and I think I enjoy it more now than I did then. But yeah, I think it's really the peacefulness of it's just you going around running. It's especially nice when you can do it outside. I'm not really a treadmill fan, but yeah.
No on the treadmill. 100% no. Even if you don't have any other options, do not run on a treadmill. I would rather see someone run up and down their driveway than use a treadmill. And the reason is A, it's super boring, and B, it's such a repetitive motion. There's not the slightest variation of the terrain. So, and even if you have a treadmill that goes up and down, it's still very repetitive. And I think I see a lot more running injuries occur with treadmills than running outside. Of course, you could also sprain your ankle on a rock outside. So there probably is some reasons for a treadmill. Last thing about running, there's so many parallels between training for a race and having the discipline to get out the door and being a musician and being a food blogger and being in anything, running a business, creating a studio, building your social media, these things require small, incremental, logical, strategical steps that you repeat every day, not some massive thing that has to happen. And that's a great takeaway for anything, is that if you want to accomplish a goal, it's a 5K, 10K, ultra marathon, whatever, you have to have a plan and you have to have a strategy and you have to know what you're going to do each day and plan that strategy when you are doing your best thinking, when you're being proactive. If you do the plan when you're being reactive, you're going to make bad choices. And, like when I run long distances, my body literally hallucinates about carbohydrates. I am dreaming of pasta while I'm running. It's the funniest thing. And I don't know if that's my body telling me you need this fuel right now because you're burning through whatever. But that, I don't know, maybe you have some insights on that. But
I mean, I just want pasta all the time, even when I'm not running. So, but I totally get that. Yeah.
Point taken. And actually, that's probably true for me too. One of the biggest challenges for musicians right now is, I'm not breaking news here by saying this, but is just connecting with our audiences, right? The only way that we can really connect with our audiences right now during the COVID-19 pandemic is through online, is through social media, is through email, through Facebook, through Instagram, through Twitter. Yes, we can definitely have these small COVID-safe performances that a lot of creative musicians are doing. A lot of orchestras are trying to find ways to present something to people. But in reality, right now, if you're trying to build something, you're doing it on social media. You have an amazing following on social media. Let me put it that way. Can you talk a little bit about your thoughts around how you use social media, how you've built the incredible following you have, and what somebody who's just starting to build their audience, maybe they have a brand new business or a new group or something, what would you tell them to think about when they're starting that journey?
That's a really interesting question. So I have built my audience over a really long period of time. So I'll just start off by saying that. I have been on Instagram doing my food blog / musician thing since probably 2012. So I was, interacting with folks on Instagram way before Instagram was, a main networking tool. I think I hit 10K back in 2016. Growing my audience is not necessarily, in terms of numbers, it's not necessarily my main goal anymore. I think my main goal now, and what I think is probably even more important, way more important than numbers, is who I'm building my following with now and who I'm interacting with. Because what I have come to realize with the size following that I have, which is not a huge following, it's 12.6 thousand now, I think.
That's pretty huge. Sarah, that's pretty huge.
Thanks. I mean, when I see some of my friends who have like 100, 200,000, I can't even fathom what that feels like. But, yes, it is a large following, but there is a very small portion of that 12.6K who I really know and I interact with. And I think that is more important than the number of followers. The number helps, but the quality of the relationships that you build through social media is even more important.
I love that you mentioned that point. I just want to interject, sorry, is the people who you have connected with are your audience and their level of engagement is high. So if you're someone who's just starting out on social media and you have 100 followers and you're feeling like that's not a big number, but those people are your people, they're your audience, and they're engaging with you, think about what 100 people standing in a room listening to you talk would look like. That's not a small amount of people. It's actually enough to do a lot of change and impact a lot of people's lives. So I know it's easy to judge when even if you're talking about comparing yourself to people who have 100,000 followers, it's a lot of people if they're the right people.
Right, exactly. And in terms of what people can do to attract that audience, one, I would say dig into who's already there. Like you said, if there's 100 people in a room, that's a lot if they're listening to you closely. So get to know who is already there and engage with them and see what they want. And then on top of that, in terms of attracting new people, I really think that if you are genuinely yourself and you present yourself that way on social media, it's really interesting line to toe, because social media is very much a highlight reel of people's lives. And I get caught up in that sometimes, but I think vulnerability can really go a long way and be very attractive to other people who are following you and engaging to people, and not in a superficial way. When I say attractive, I guess that sounds kind of shallow, but I mean it more in terms of, if you are genuine and vulnerable on social media, that will really create relationships with the people who are looking up to you and who want to learn from you.
What do you think about perfectionism as it relates to social media?
That's really interesting, because I think especially in the classical music sphere, and I have totally experienced this before, when we're posting clips of ourselves practicing, or we're posting clips of performances, we always want to pick the clip that sounds the best. I mean, I am totally guilty of that, but I do think there's also space, and also probably, people want to see this more than they want to see a perfect clip. They want to see the screw ups. They want to see people be silly about it. Like I posted a couple months ago, and I think it was originally a Facebook story that I did, because sometimes what I'll do is when I'm preparing for something, I'll take practice videos in my stories. And there was one time that I just completely botched a run, and I just threw my head back and laughed. And I think we need more of that, on social media. We need to see people screwing up in the practice room, people getting frustrated, because that's truly what goes on more often than people playing things perfectly.
And frankly, that's where the interesting stuff happens anyway, because it's not the perfection that you can learn from. Although it's nice to listen to Hilary Hahn play some Bach. Yeah, go and do that, please. But also, wouldn't it be fun? I don't know if she's ever posted something like this, or other players of her caliber have. I would love to see her screw-ups. I would love to see her fails and how she works it out, because that's going to be more useful for me as a musician anyway. Although there's certainly plenty of inspiring things to look at as well. Can we talk a little bit about the food photography aspect of being a food blogger? I imagine that this is a little bit more complicated than just taking a quick snap of the meal that's in front of you and posting it. Can you talk about your process, the lighting, or how do you make those amazing pictures that are posted all over your socials?
Sure. And thank you for calling them amazing. I feel like I'm constantly working on my food photography. I have a nice camera sitting right here. For a long time, I did not have a nice camera. I was using my phone. And the process, it's gotten different over the years as I see what the trends are in food photography, as I see what engages people and what looks the most appealing, I guess. I always try to get several different shots. I usually try to get an overhead shot of everything, where I have, the dish, and then I've got the garnishes that are kind of scattered to the side, and the props. And then I try to get, a close-up picture with my macro lens, where I try to get the texture of the food. And then, I don't know, for every dish it's different. But the main goal is I want to make this look like you could go into the phone and eat it, or you could go into the computer screen and eat it. Because the goal with food photography is you want to make people want to make your recipes. And so that's kind of what I think about. And in terms of the process, it's actually, I think one day I should go live on Instagram while I'm shooting a recipe, because it's usually very scattered and kind of intense. What I'll do is I have a little food photography backdrop that I'll put near a window so I can get the natural light. And, when you look at the photo, it looks like it's this big expansive table where you imagine that there's beautiful light everywhere. Everything just looks so neat and beautiful. But actually what it is it's like a surface this size, and I've made everything on that surface look beautiful, but I've got a light over here and, I'm crouched sweating, trying to get a picture over here. It's kind of funny. It's kind of a microcosm for social media, right? Everything in the little box is perfect, but everything around it, it's like chaos.
So you've not only prepared this food and plated it beautifully, but you're also like hanging out near a window, waiting for the sun to be in just the right spot?
Yeah. And I it's interesting because I know a lot of food bloggers, especially the ones who have the huge, very, very popular blogs. They swear by artificial light because they don't like to have to plan their photography around a certain time of day. And depending on where you live and where your windows face, you're going to have maybe an hour window. Like I'm in an apartment I lived in recently. I knew that if I did not take pictures between 12 and 3 p.m., that was it. My opportunity for that day was gone. So yeah, it can be kind of stressful.
Wow. I want to just take a quick helicopter view of your story so far. You're a musician, you're in New York, you're stressing out, you're not taking care of yourself, you have these big goals and you hit a wall and you decided to change and do something different about it. And through that decision and through that commitment to change, you discovered something that was related to your life, but not part of being a violinist, that is completely lighting you up, completely satisfying you, actually made you a better violinist, a happier person, a healthier person, and created a business out of it. That is an epic journey. And my mission is to get musicians to play and imagine and pretend and create. What could that look like for me? I'm a musician. If you're listening to this podcast right now and you're a musician who has those 10,000 hour skills and you've done this work and you've learned how to, chunk things down and create goals and get in front of people and network and work in a community, what are 5 things that you might be good at that you could do in addition to just being a really great trumpet player or a really great violinist? Think about those things and have fun, because Hungry Musician is a great example of, I don't know if you ever thought about being a food blogger before it just sort of happened, but it happened because you made a decision to start doing those things, and you clearly put in the work, figuring out the camera, figuring out the lighting, making this stuff happen, getting the recipes. This is not a small thing you did. What do you think? Do you think your skills as a musician have helped you build this part of your life?
Definitely. Yeah. I think that there's a level of discipline, but also a level of creativity that we have as musicians that translates so well to other things. And it was actually really interesting because when I started my blog 10 years ago, I was not thinking about it as, oh, this will be part of my career someday. Like I thought about it as, I'm making this change in my life and I enjoy cooking and I want to talk about it on the internet. Like I just want to, and when I first started my blog, it was literally just my mom reading it at home, pretty much. Like I didn't have Instagram yet. It was really just me. I was doing it for me. And I think there are a lot of things, if I'm going to speak to, anyone who's listening who might be thinking, oh, I don't really know what I want to do. Just think about the things that you enjoy and that really light you up. And that could be music. That could be something else in addition to music. There could be lots of things, but I think just go with what makes you happy. And like I said before, be really, genuine and open with it. And that's really all that you need, because you have the discipline, you have the skills, you already know how to do it. Just go with it, I think.
All right. I think let's shift full onto the hungry part of the Hungry Musician. Favorite comfort food? Go.
Mac and cheese.
I knew you were going to say mac and cheese. I knew it. I just felt it. You are my people, Sarah. So one of the big challenges in my household is we are a 50% gluten-free household, which means we are pretty much 100% gluten-free. We don't buy different stuffs in this house. And mac and cheese has been one of the most elusive dishes to replicate in the gluten-free sphere. And in addition to that, anything that needs like dough that holds a shape of some kind, like to make a pretzel or a bagel, is almost impossible for me with gluten-free. So what are some good gluten-free alternatives for like flour that you could recommend? Okay,
so this is a really interesting topic. I love baking gluten-free. I'm not gluten-free myself, but I actually, how my blog got started is that I was trying to experiment with different, what I thought, I was calling them healthy ingredients. And we all know now healthy is very relative, right? But I wanted to familiarize myself with substitutions. So in terms of a gluten-free baking flour, I'm not really an expert when it comes to stuff that needs to rise. So in terms of like gluten-free breads, like leavened breads and stuff like that, I'm not totally an expert. But in terms of pastry, I can recommend that Bob's Red Mill 1-to-1 pastry, gluten-free pastry blend is really good. Like I've used it for like pie doughs and banana breads and stuff like that. And it's really convincing.
Okay, Red Mill, I'm familiar with that one. Good.
Yeah, Bob's Red Mill 1-to-1. I think actually it might be Paleo Baking Blend is what it might be called. I can look it up and send it to you. And then for pasta, I really like brown rice pasta. I actually tend to buy it more often than regular pasta because, like I said, I try to eat less gluten even though I'm not allergic to it, but the texture is shockingly similar. And it's nice and chewy. It doesn't go soggy. It's not mealy. I like brown rice pasta.
My daughter was supposed to create a little volcano for a class project. And of course, because we're homeschooling online, I was, it was just me helping her. And the iPad was there with the teacher. And all the kids were visible on screen in their little squares making their volcanoes. And we didn't realize that, this particular day was volcano making day. So we hadn't pre-shopped any of the ingredients. So I'm flying around the kitchen grabbing stuff off this list for this class that's going to start in 5 minutes. And of course you need flour. We don't have flour in our house. We have potato starch and we have rice. I don't even know what we have up in there, but it's all this strange gluten-free stuff. So I grab a bag of, it might even been a 1-to-1 sort of a thing. Mm-hmm. And we're supposed to make this volcano shape around a glass. And that dough would not it wouldn't stand up. It wouldn't, because I guess the gluten is what binds it together and gives things shape, right? And so my poor daughter, who's not the gluten-free kid in the family, by the way, had this sad like lump, like a donut, more like than a volcano around this glass. And all of her friends had these beautiful looking volcanoes. And she just looked at me like, life is not fair, Daddy. It's like, yes, I'm sorry. We can take this and make cookies out of it. Would that make you happier? Anyway, the struggle is real, folks. Gluten-free is a thing. Sarah, what do you get out of being a food blogger that you don't get out of being a musician?
That's a really good question. I think that I have a different attitude towards food than I do towards music. And I think it's because we'll call music my day job, I guess. There's a level of polish that has to come out with a final product in a performance. Like I'll spend weeks, months preparing for a big performance. And the idea is that it is going to be as polished and as perfect as I can make it in that moment. With food, I'll use like an example. Last night I made chili. And with cooking, it's so much more of a flow for me. And I'm not yes, I am a bit of a perfectionist, so I care about the final product, but I don't have as much invested in the final product. Like I'm going to eat it and then it's going to be gone and I can make it again. So I think I find the process of cooking a little bit more meditative than I find the process of practicing and creating a performance. For that, I feel like it's a little bit more methodical in a way. And yeah, cooking is methodical too, but I think I don't know. I just have a different feeling when I cook than when I'm playing.
One of the things you said on your website, which made me ask this question, was feeling proud of the food I was cooking made me feel more creative, more confident, more balanced, and more energized. Even though I was spending less time in the practice room, I was making better progress on the violin. Mm-hmm. So for me, interpreting that quote is like, the reason that you play the violin, perhaps, or maybe one of the reasons you play the violin is to feel creative, confident, balanced, and energized. And because that's your job, and it's also been something you've been working at a long time and comes with all of the mindset limitations and stereotypes that we have and the real challenges that we have, it can sort of chip away at some of that energizing, creative, confident balance. And so reinvigorating that through something else, for me, it's coaching. I feel like I'm the most creative when I'm doing coaching programs or working one-on-one with a client. And for you, it seems like that pride and energized balance came from this journey with food. And now you're bringing that to people in a very real way. So I think there's so many similarities between you playing the violin and you having a food blog.
Oh, absolutely. And yes, I mean, what I said in that sentence there about it, creating this confidence and all of that. And what you said is absolutely true about when this is our job. And I think that this is very specific to having a creative job, is that it's so easy to get wrapped up in that perfectionism and to, I think you said, like it chips away a little bit. You know, when you have to do it every day and you have to put out a certain product, there is a level of, it feels like it's limiting your creativity. And that's not always necessarily true. It's the way that it feels, but it's not always necessarily true. And so I think having an alternate creative outlet, in fact, I know having an alternate creative outlet or multiple creative outlets is really important for people with creative careers, because then you're not relying on your job to be the thing that is fulfilling you completely as a creative person.
I love it. What an awesome answer. Thank you for that. Okay, here's another quote from Sarah. Never go into a Trader Joe's without a plan. Can you talk to me a little bit about the meal plan makeover? And I think about this in terms of practicing, like never walk into a practice room without a plan.
So my thinking behind the meal plan makeover is, well, first of all, it's based on mistakes that I have made myself. Even as a person who loves to cook, I'm human. And so I have, been in a scenario where I went into Trader Joe's without a plan, and I came home with tons of mochi bites and frozen veggie burgers and, whatever from Trader Joe's. And I'm like, I didn't really get everything I needed to make a full plan this week. Or I got some stuff that I needed, but I also forgot something else. And, I've also been in this spot where I plan everything out to a T. And then I plan it out on Sunday, and then Wednesday rolls around and I'm like, I don't really want vegetable curry, even though I was craving it on Sunday. So I'm just going to order takeout, and this was, happening a lot more, I think, in grad school than it happens now. But I would get kind of, fed up with the plans that I made. And instead of pivoting to make it work, I would, not cook, or I'd order takeout, I'd go out, or I would waste groceries that I'd already bought because I didn't really feel like I could do anything with them. I think that a lot of that comes from not really knowing what your options are. And so that is what I'm trying to get at with the meal plan makeover. And I don't necessarily think that every meal should be that way, because I think that can lead to burnout as well if you're just kind of winging every single recipe. But I think there's a flexibility in meal planning that a lot of people don't realize is there. You make a plan and then in your mind you're like, oh, I have to stick to this. But I really think the best plan is one that is flexible and works for the individual. And that is what the meal plan makeover is all about. We're going to stop wasting groceries, stop winging it all the time. We're just going to have creative plans that we can adjust to and make work for us.
All right, I'm very skeptical that you can say what my wife is capable of doing is something that I can learn, but I'm willing to step up and take the challenge, Sarah. So maybe I need to sign up for the training. Something that just occurred to me when you were talking about having a plan and sort of mapping things out, yet also being flexible about it is sort of kind of what I'm trying to do with my social media strategy, where rather than waking up on a Monday morning and saying, oh my God, I have to post something I haven't posted in a week. What am I going to do? And I just throw some random stock photo up and some unintelligible messaging. For me, what's been working better is to sit down, think about things in terms of like a campaign. What is it that I'm trying to accomplish here? And then, making small content chunks or messaging around that, and then sort of just mapping out the way the week's going to look. So I have an arc and it's not the same thing every day, and it's different and it's blended. And I think that's similar to what you're sort of suggesting with food, while you can also decide, you know what, I'm just going to do takeout tonight anyway. There's nothing wrong with that as well.
Of course. Yeah, absolutely. I think that what I've learned over the years is that having the plan is the most important thing, not executing the plan. Whether it's for our meals or our social media content strategy or whatever it is in life, in the practice room, as long as we know what we want to accomplish going in, it doesn't matter the steps that we take to get there, as long as we get to a place where we're satisfied with the work we put in and the result, that's all that matters.
Oh, that was totally awesome. Thank you, Sarah, for that awesome insight and quote. So on your Facebook page, which you guys can find at The Hungry Musician, by the way, there's a picture of you enjoying a strawberry-colored smoothie of some kind. Mm-hmm. Your violin is slung over your shoulder. You look like you're enjoying a nutritious snack on the way to a gig or the way from a rehearsal. And I have to admit something. I suffer from smoothie FOMO because I like smoothies and I like to know, like, what are people having? Is my smoothie good or bad? I'm very black and white with smoothies. It's not healthy. I know it. You look so satisfied and knowledgeable about that smoothie you're drinking in that picture. I was wondering if you could be up to playing a little game that today I'm going to call What is in That Smoothie?
Okay, I'm down.
All right, here are the rules if you're up for it. I'm going to name a smoothie that someone has actually invented, or a typical type of smoothie, like a post-workout smoothie. And your job is to guess what's in it.
Okay.
Okay, simple?
Sure.
All right, this should be fun. I'm going to start you off with an easy one here, okay? The strawberry whirl.
Okay, I'm going to guess it probably has strawberries in it. Not sure, but I'm going to guess there's a fair amount of strawberries. Banana, yogurt, or milk, and I'm going to stop there. That sounds like a pretty basic strawberry banana smoothie.
Brilliant. You got everything. The only difference, so there is an oat component in oat milk. Strawberry juice was part of this recipe, as well as strawberries. And I don't know if that's the consistency or what, but okay, good. You got that one. That was really good. All right, let's step it up a little. By the way, some of these are going to go off the rails a bit, so just buckle up. Okay, here we go. The next one is called the pumpkin smash.
The pumpkin smash. Ooh, that sounds good. Now I want a pumpkin smoothie. Okay. Pumpkin puree, banana, maybe coconut milk, cinnamon, nutmeg, or some kind of like pumpkin spice blend. And I don't know, maybe like oats or something, or I don't know, some kind of grain that you could blend in there.
I need a bell. Ding, ding, ding. You got it. You totally nailed it. The one that I found actually didn't actually have any actual pumpkin in it, which is so strange. But it did have everything else you said, including a pumpkin spice blend. And I think that was more of an inferred pumpkin. Mm-hmm. Okay, next one. We got 3 more here and we're done.
Okay.
The Chill Out Honeydew Cucumber Slushy.
Whoa, that's interesting. All right, Chill Out Honeydew Cucumber Slushy. I'm going to guess, well, definitely honeydew cucumber. If it's a slushy, I'm going to go ahead and say there's probably no milk in it.
Correct.
And maybe there's like, I don't know, pineapple juice or like lemon juice or something like that in there, like a juice, and ice. How'd I do?
Okay, you're really good. Oh my God. So it was coconut water.
Okay.
Coconut water was the with no milk component in this one whatsoever. They also, and it was half an English hothouse cucumber. Apparently this one's really high in vitamin B, which is cool. And they also put in mint leaves and some fresh lime juice.
Oh.
So I'm going to have to try that one.
Like a mojito.
All right, there's 2 more, and these are not going to be pretty. Okay. This is a real thing right here.
Okay.
Someone made this. The Jamba Juice Cheeseburger Chill Smoothie.
Oh, good Lord.
And I'll give you a hint. There's only 2 ingredients in this one.
Okay. I'm going to say it's probably like a Jamba Juice if these people are putting cheeseburgers in smoothies, I'm going to guess it's like the most caloric smoothie possible from Jamba Juice. So it's probably like the peanut butter protein, whatever, and then a cheeseburger.
And you nailed it. And also ice.
Oh,
because if you're going to blend a cheeseburger, you need ice. All right, here's the last one, and then I'll stop torturing you and our listeners with this. I don't know if this one's being sold anywhere, but I found this recipe on the internet in preparation for our chat. The McNuggetini blended drink. and I'll give you a hint. This one is a cocktail.
McNuggetini.
The McNuggetini blended drink.
Huh. That sounds vile. But okay. I'm curious. This is a difficult one because I think it could be one of two things. It could actually be a drink that has the McNuggets blended into it, or it could be a drink that's trying to look like what McNuggets are before they get fried.
It's the first one.
It's the first one? Okay. Mm-hmm. Okay, so McNuggets vodka?
Ding, ding, ding. Yep.
Is that it?
Also barbecue sauce and a little chocolate milkshake.
Oh, Lord.
That's the thing. Yeah, and you nailed it, because with those ingredients, if you're putting a McNugget into a cocktail glass, you need vodka and hopefully copious amounts. All right, I don't know if that just did anything to establish your authority as a food blogger or if I just took away from it, but thank you for playing along.
That was fun. Thanks.
So great to talk to you. Where can our listeners connect with you online to learn more about the meal plan makeover and all the other stuff you have going on over at The Hungry Musician?
Sure. So my website is thehungrymusician.com. That's my blog, and that's where you can find a lot of my full recipes, and there is information about the meal plan makeover there. On Instagram, I am at Hungry Musician, so without the. And on Facebook as well. It's facebook.com/Hungry Musician, or you can just search for The Hungry Musician and it should pop up. And I post a lot about my music as well on Instagram. So that's sort of the all-purpose platform. If you want to see about my music and my food blog, that's where you can go. Or if you want to see just my music, you can go to www.sjk, my initials, sjkviolin.com.
Perfect. I'll make sure all these links are in the show notes, and I'm going to go make myself a cheeseburger chill smoothie now. Sarah, thank you for taking the time to speak with us. Great chat. Looking forward to your challenge and hearing more from you.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Okay, take care. Bye.
Thanks.
Big thanks to Sarah Kenner for joining us today and sharing so much knowledge about food, social media strategies, food photography, and especially for being such a good sport and suffering through my recipe challenge. I know my next task is to figure out how to blend a cheeseburger into a smoothie. Don't forget to head over to Sarah's website and check out her next incredible program, The Complete Kitchen Makeover. Who doesn't need one of those? And as always, check out all of her recipes at thehungrymusician.com. Okay, that's it for me today. This has been the Honesty Pill Podcast, Episode 6. You can find out more at honestypill.com. Check out the free resource library. Lots of good stuff over there. Thank you so much for listening. See you next time.